Hi, welcome to Rope In Mental Health. I'm Garrett Kennedy, mental health consultant. Here at Rope In Mental Health, we're looking at making and building a resilient, observant, positive environment. Now, one of the biggest problems towards keeping a positive environment, especially as, say, an EA or maybe a parent at home helping some children in a way with their homework that you haven't before, or maybe not to this extent, there's a feeling of frustration that can rise in both the child and in the support worker. So I was really thinking about how to do this because this is such a key point to behavioral control, really, is dealing with this frustration. And I look at frustration as a very complex emotion comprised of many different things and based on different situations. You could be angry when you're frustrated, scared, confused, all of these things together, but there's an overwhelming sense to your emotions, a mixture of. And I really wanted to do a good job of this piece because I think that not only can this help in today's day and age of maybe doing a little distance learning or doing some school work from home and some at school, but also this can help with behaviorally challenging situations all over the place. Really, what we're looking at with behaviors, the ultimate point in frustration can be being abused, can be putting in a situation where you, as a parent or an EA, are helping a child, or you yourself are getting to the frustrated point of conducting themselves inappropriately. And in some schools, it can get quite drastic, and some children aren't safe at home, as our Prime Minister mentioned. And I got to thinking about frustration and behavioral change and all of the different things that I've done, from occupational health and safety to registered nurse and mental health and addictions, and all of the different things that I have worked on towards this behavioral change process. And really, frustration is a problem not only for the educational world, not only for students and teachers, but also I want to point out that these skills, whatever they be, that works for your situation, these calming strategies, these problem-solving scenarios, are really reliant upon that positive environment. And you know, as I got to thinking and talking to my spouse, who does similar work, about the frustrations that go along with being an EA, and sometimes we had a chat actually with a bunch of EAs, and sometimes children are acting out, are violent, are striking, or what have you. This is a system that we've been working in for years. Not only us, healthcare workers as well. As I mentioned, I have worked on long-term care. I've worked in situations with mentally disturbed, sorry about the terminology, but the fact of the matter is, speaking to the common person, healthcare aides are also oftentimes in a situation, nurses, whatever, of being victimized. Police, of course, firemen. This is a very large problem of where it almost becomes expected in some jobs or situations that being hit is just okay. It's part and parcel of what happens. Now, this also goes to battered spouses and battered children, or parents who are battered by their children, children battered by their parents. There's an overwhelming sense of frustration in many of these situations. So I just want to look at it taking apart from any one specific situation, but what is the purpose of frustration? Why do we have it? And why do I think that it's actually a very healthy emotion if it's recognized, if you're observant of it, right? So to be resilient about these situations, we have to give frustration some thought. And really, when it comes down to being frustrated, it's because you don't think that the situation is unfolding the way you feel it should. Your needs are not going to be met. A fear lays in that the goals of the day or this task won't be completed in the correct way or in the correct time, or whatever the situation may be, that causes rise of this frustration. Frustration is an indication in my mind and the way I look at it, frustration is an indication that you need to stop what you're doing. Frustration can quickly become overwhelming and cause negative or unhealthy coping behaviors. You get into the fight or flight system because anytime we get overwhelmed in any emotional way, we have a tendency to behave the same way we did the last time we were reminded of that situation. Hence, we get into what we call a cycle of abuse or a cycle of behavior. And that cycle of behavior has certain points on it where it is possible to evolve along and basically be roped out of that cycle and pulled into a more healthy behavioral pattern. All right, that sounds really complicated. Long and the short of it, whatever system you're going to follow with behavioral change and whatever your counselor and you or whatever tips I can give you, such as relaxation and massage therapy and guided meditation, or what I call a mind massage, which is basically like self-hypnosis. There's many things that can be done over the phone from a counselor to help you with these overwhelming feelings of frustration if this pattern fits your life. Okay, so once you get the idea of how to deal with these situations in the mainstay, when you're in the green zone, everything's fine, everything's going the way you want. But frustration is an indication we're heading into that yellow zone, and if we don't want to go through the pattern up to the red zone and back to where we are again, if we want to break from that pattern, during this green zone time is when we should really pay attention to what is causing the frustration in those moments. Okay? You might have to wait till the next time. You might have to collect some more information. This is a team situation. It's a relationship building part. This frustration that's coming up in a cyclical manner, and I'll go back and revert to an EA as an example of helping a child with a situation, getting them to do work that they've done before and they're fully capable of, but they just won't do it. Frustration can rise up very quickly, either from the child or from the support worker, and you get into this cycle of trying to get the behavior, trying to get the task completed. There's an outburst or a reluctance, an avoidance of some kind, and then emotions start escalating. We've all been there. One of the things that we want to try to do is recognize that, and there's nothing wrong with saying out loud that you're frustrated. Role modeling that you have emotions and putting words to them is how we're going to build the relationship in these situations. So before we get to a blowout, when we notice that there's behaviors we finally recognize, I know which way this is going to go and it never ends up good. The second we recognize those, we have to have a team reaction. We have to have both people in that moment accepting what the problem is and the plan to implement to change that behavior. Here's where we get into the problem, is oftentimes children don't realize that there's a problem. They don't agree that not getting their work done is really an issue. This is where the frustration comes up. And it can be very difficult to work through this in a positive light and very easy for it to escalate to a very detrimental place, no matter what the circumstance. This is when we need to be observant of our own emotions and be able to verbalize, I am frustrated, Billy, because last time we had this kind of interaction, it ended up with you storming out of the room. And I don't want that to happen again. So can we work on you not storming out of the room? How can we have a better reaction? Because I feel like this is getting to be frustrating for myself, and I'm wondering if you feel the same. This opens up the door to a dialogue, to a point where now you've mentioned that you feel there's a problem, and that is okay. You've mentioned that you have emotions and that you're fallible, and that you, as the adult in the situation, or you as the one in charge in the situation, even if you're not the one in charge and you're the one who usually receives a pencil thrown across the room or whatever, Um, in these moments, when you start noticing that there is a trend towards a negative consequence that you've been there before, it might be a good time to really take note of the situation. Get in charge of your own feelings as much as you possibly can, even if that means walking away or giving in and saying, yeah, you know what? Okay, fine, Billy, this time we won't get that work done. This time we'll do what you want to do again, but don't add that. Try to keep it positive, right? So if Billy is trying to avoid doing some work and he's starting to get frustrated at your attempts to try to help the situation along, and he keeps saying, no, that's not the way I want to be helped, or that's not the way Mrs. Lasso does it at school, or that's not the way, whatever the case may be, when the feelings are starting to get escalated, that's the point in which to point out those emotions. Start the emotional dialogue with the child in that case. They're the ones who are getting frustrated first. And there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, you know what, hold on, I see you're getting frustrated. I do not want you to get more upset. I want us both to be happy. I want us both to be happy and get your needs met. What can I do for you? Now, this might invite them to tell you exactly what they need to be done. And hopefully, if your relationship is strong and your communication skills between yourself and the person you're supporting or you're in this cycle with, as long as your relationship and your communication skills with this person are strong, you might be able to work into the conversation, finding out what their needs are, finding out what it is that's triggering this situation. Because ultimately what we're looking at in a positive support method or trying to get to a healthier, happier life, what we're trying to do is recognize these things that lead to a negative consequence and cut them off before we get that to happen. Okay? In addictions, if you're struggling with addictions at this time of self-isolation and whatnot, you're very familiar with the concepts of CBT, of cognitive behavioral therapy, of making pros cons lists, of working through identifying what is the problem. That's a whole skill set. That can't start until you actually accept that there is a problem. We've all heard addicts at whatever meeting on TVs and movies stand up and proudly say, you know, hi, my name's Garrett Kennedy and I have attention deficit disorder, or whatever the case may be in those situations, right? People who accept that they have a problem with, say, anger or aggression are more likely to actually take part in changing that behavior. So the first thing is defining that this is a problem, which gets me back to what is the cycle and what is the context and why this is such an important situation. Because the consequences in some relationships is not just no more iPad time or we're going to skip gym class. The consequences of some frustrating situations is physical violence. And sometimes we do have great training within the school districts across Canada as far as non-crisis violence intervention and what to do, the MANT system. There's many different systems available for actually dealing with that red zone explosive moment. I'm not dealing with that. What I'm talking about is trying to be observant of when the emotions start to get out of control and looking at frustration as your friend. Frustration is something that you shouldn't absorb yourself in and follow down the path of being overwhelmed with, but frustration can point out to places that you're becoming upset. And when you're feeling frustrated, or if you can help somebody else notice what's frustrating them in a way that you both understand, then that might be able to work towards different behaviors in the long run. So if every time Billy won't do his homework or Billy gets upset, Billy storms out of the room, the next time Billy storms out of the room and calms back down, whether that's from your help or because he does it on his own, the very next time that happens, waiting for that cycle to turn around into a place where he's all lovey-dovey again, right? Because that does happen, and he's starting to listen to you again. Once you have the child or Billy's attention again, you can say, you know, Billy, last time you stormed out of the room, how did you feel right before you stormed out the room? Well, what caused you to feel that way? And hopefully, if the conversation goes as smoothly as it does in textbooks, and you've built the relationship of trust between yourself and the person looking to change, then Billy might accept he needs to no longer run out of the classroom. As long as Billy doesn't know that's a problem, Billy won't change. So we have to capitalize on those moments of frustration, because it's something that children, adults, everybody can easily name. I'm frustrated. Well, what made you frustrated? Don't focus on why were you frustrated. Why questions tend to give emotional answers, which is kind of what we're looking for. But we also don't want to sound like, well, why were you upset? Well, why did that upset you? It can sound very attacking. So in a child who's been frustrated, or in a person who's been overwhelmed and became frustrated and acted out unhealthily, after that system calms down and the person's listening again, it's actually a very healthy time to acknowledge that frustration, to say, I don't want to bring this up again, I don't want to argue, but I don't want to repeat that again. If I understand what made you frustrated or how you became frustrated, I'd like to see it from your point of view. I'd like to feel the same frustration you do, so I can help you avoid that, and we can work together to get the goal done. Because the goal, remember, is what we're trying to do, the task. Now, I'm not saying that you should just let the child run around and run the whole day. However, if the child is completely unwilling to work, are you going to spend the next half hour with bad emotions arguing, or the next half hour with slightly better emotions, trying to help the child find that calm peace? And once you spread that calm to them, or help them find that calm within themselves, then attack the behavior, not the feelings and emotions. You have to validate, yes, that is frustrating. However, running out on me or throwing that eraser or whatever behavior, that one behavior, just stick to the one, whatever caused that, I would like to avoid. Is there another reaction we can have? Like when you feel that way, can you say we have to solve a problem and we can maybe stop what we're doing, and that would be a good time to maybe share some calm breaths and then say, okay, what is the problem that you're bringing up? You're going to find for sure after some time of doing this and some practice and some more building a relationship, it's all based on trust between the two individuals. And if you have those pieces in place, then what you'll find over time is that there will be less incidents of blowing out. There will be more incidents of cooperative action, and there will be more productivity across the board. You will spend your day in a much happier place. There will be a much safer, positive environment if you can remain constant to acknowledging. Let's identify frustration. Anytime you feel frustrated, let's work on that really quickly. How do we resolve it? That will build those skills so that the goal is eventually, when the child's starting to feel frustrated, they will self-recognize that they're frustrated. They will use self-calming techniques to get themselves back in place, and they will be able to carry on their day, completing their tasks without having the unhealthy outbursts. Thank you again for listening to Rope In Mental Health. I hope you guys are helping me build a resilient, observant, positive environment across Canada and across the globe. Quick hand to all of our healthcare workers and all of my nursing friends out there that I graduated with. I'm no longer in scrubs, as you can see. No N95 shaved down for me yet. However, my heart goes out to you. I thank you all for your work. And for those of you struggling with emotional crisis at home, there is help out there. I'm speaking to anybody who is in a dangerous situation at home. There are phone numbers you can call. It may be very hard to find a private moment to reach out for help. I understand that. I'll try to keep giving some little healthy tidbits and feedback. If you can help yourself control your emotions, it might help the situation better. And in all honesty, if you can open a dialogue with the person that you're isolated with and start working on those relationship pieces to avoid an eventual crash or an eventual meltdown with the people you're isolated with. Now is the time to use those relationship building skills and build the resiliency in your relationship. Now is the time to act on that. Anyway, thank you guys very much. Please spread the calm. Great job, Globe, on having a peaceful reaction to this threat against humanity. Enjoy your day.